Hello, and welcome to part one. So this is a deep dive into Fate the Winx Saga. Apologies, this is actually the second time I'm doing this tonight. So I didn't realize that Netflix would blank out the episode as I was talking through it, which on reflection is not the most intelligent thing I've ever done. So I was talking over the top of images that were required for the video to make sense, and then you couldn't see them because it just had the subtitles on. So I am re-recording this now. So this is take two of my insights into Fate the Winx Saga. So recapping on season one, you have Bloom, the fire fairy, who has quite a lot of unearned friendships and relationships. So she forms, by the end of the season, incredibly close friendships with four other fairies, some of whom are amazing friends who I don't think she deserves. She's in a romantic relationship with Sky. We'll get back to Sky. She releases Rosalind, I believe it is, who is the big bad, who then kills the first headmistress, Miss Dowling, and like aggressively takes over the school. And season one ended with them returning from basically telling Bloom's parents, I think telling her that she's a fairy, which we don't see, and there doesn't seem to be any fallout of because her parents aren't in season two at all. So there you are. Get used to this, guys. So I am going to start watching season two. But before we do that, I did mention the bad dialogue in season one, and I have found that clip. And in my original version of this, which didn't make any sense because you couldn't see the footage, I completely muddled these two characters up. So I muddled up Dane and Riven, and then callously refused to apologize because the writing was so poor that it is quite hard to keep track of the characters. It's really hard to keep track of who everyone is. So yeah, I'm gonna play the dialogue out of context. I think that's best. And know that I'm not doing this I'm not doing this out of malice. I'm saying this in advance. I will be using this. I will probably keep referring back to this clip as a definite low point. This is it. This is the lowest of the low of the dialogue. And I think this is bad. This is bad. But I share it with you for a purpose, and I want you to know that. Okay, here we go. I'll try not to laugh.
I don't know how you can smoke so much after Terrace brownies. Ah, man, she puts my weed in Alice's Dowling would. Tara, don't be an asshole. She made them for everybody. No, she didn't. She made them for you. She's so thirsty for your dick. It's embarrassing.
Context this evening. Oh, okay. I watched it 3 times in the first version of this, so I feel like we should listen to it again. I feel like I was laughing over this. I need to be more professional. This is okay. I'm gonna try not to laugh. I'm gonna try very, very hard not to laugh. Okay.
Made them for you. By the way, what size are you?
Yeah. That is that's season one in a nutshell, really. If you want the dialogue, a summary of the dialogue, that is your watermark. That is the low watermark. So yeah, that's where we were, and it got a season two. So, you know, whatever happens in your life, go for it, because Fate the Winx Saga got a second series. I know it got cancelled. I'm sure somebody else will bring it back, because nothing ever dies anymore. It just moves to a different streaming site. Right, okay. So I'm gonna start with season 2, episode 1. So it begins quite effectively. There's kind of like a horror-esque scene. So we have some characters that we've not seen before. I mean, it would be nice if we had background characters from season 1 that we could use in this scene. Just out of interest, does anyone else think that the font that they use for the opening credits is a little weird? Like, not like the actual animated wings thing they have, but like they have this really awful red font for like in association with, like it really feels like a placeholder that no one replaced, or it's just a bad idea. It's, again, who can say? Anyway, just discuss amongst yourselves that. I just think the font is weird, the color choice. So we have a group of students from the fairy school. They're having a party in the woods with a bonfire. There's 2 people making out, and they're mucking about. And the couple goes away and they're having a little, cheeky kiss under a bridge. And this is actually an interesting use of a power. So one of them is a mind fairy, so they can sort of sense emotion. And they're making out, and he goes, "Oh, are you okay?" to the girl, and the girl's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he was like, "Oh, when I said that thing, I felt disgust." And she's like, I knew you were joking. It's fine. It wasn't me." And then you have a sting of some like suspenseful music, and we see a guy in a trench coat, and he takes over the girl's body so she can't move, and then she stabs herself. It's kind of like quite a kind of a horror-esque thing. It's quite effectively done. I mean, the CGI is not great, but again, Winx, oh, that's bad. That's some bad CGI. It's very sweet that she's trying to save the guy that she was with, run, but she's dead. She's like super dead. So he runs underneath the bridge, and we see our magic worms, which we will get back to, and hard cut to our big stone circle of learning, and we see the school, which is it's a beautiful building. Like, I'm assuming this is a real building somewhere, that looks a lot like the building from the Vampire Academy movie. Maybe it is. I don't know. I refuse to go down this rabbit hole. There's so many things I could research with this show, but I feel like it's the kind of rabbit hole that from which I might dive too deep, and I don't think that's a good thing to do. There was some casting changes between season 2 and season 1. This is one of them. So we get Miranda Richardson taking over as Rosalind, the head teacher, and the new head teacher. She murdered the last one. No one knows that yet, but she murdered the last one. And we have some training going on. So it's kind of a bit like Thunderdome. Like, she just sort of gets the kids to just sort of wailing on each other. And it's not like, you have a fire fairy versus a fire fairy, so, they can protect themselves. It's just you have someone electrocuting someone as they refuse to defend themselves, which, I mean, they're teenagers, like, I get that you have to train them to defend themselves, but she's not defending herself. She just gets angry, flames up, and then chooses to not use it. That's not defending yourself. What's the lesson here? But this is the ongoing dynamic. Get used to the first scene between Bloom and Rosalind, the headmistress, because you will see this scene every episode at least once. So Rosalind will be like, "You're really important," because at the end of the last season she transformed, so she grew wings, fire wings, which did look very cool, and was, that was quite a cool moment. And this means she is now the chosen one. You're really important. You need to train. And Bloom will go, "Oh, I don't know if I'm ready." And, "Oh, I know I took on the burned ones from the last one, who do not come up beyond a passing mention. They were these big burnt people that they just got killed, and that was it. Like, no one cared, and they moved on. And I think they get one mention in this episode and never again. And then Rosalind is, "No, you need to fight. It's very important." And then Bloom's like, "Oh, I don't know if I can or if I want to." And then you just get that again and again and again. And the whole time Bloom's like, "Oh, I want to trust you, but I don't know if I should." Don't trust her. Just don't trust her. She's murdered a lot of people, like, she's murdered a lot of people. Okay, and now we're moving on in the episode to the next thing, which is Silver, who was Bloom's boyfriend, Sky's kind of his adoptive father, like not officially, I don't think, but after Sky's dad, we thought, was killed, Silver takes Sky in and raises him like his own son. And then it turns out at the end of season 1 that actually Sky's dad is not dead, and that it was Silver who tried to kill him and failed. One thing, like, I get that it's an intense situation. Like there were two sides on opposite sides. Rosalind, I think, had massacred a whole city, and Sky's dad was very for this, and Silver was very against this. It's they're not really going for shades of grey here. It's very black and white. Like, I'm for killing everyone, I'm not for killing everyone. Well, I think we should fight. It's very that. And we never see it. Like I could handle seeing the same actors, or get other actors in, don't de-age. Your CGI is not there at all for de-aging, but get younger actors in to let us see these moments, because I think two best friends, two sides of a war, like, oh, one has to kill the other, like, that's tragic. You would check a pulse. You've had to fight your best friend to death and to the death, and check a pulse. And as the episode goes on, we reintroduce our main characters. So Stella, the light fairy, Terra, the plant and earth fairy, Musa, the mind fairy. And Stella is making herself invisible because she basically screwed up at the end of season 1 as far as her mother's concerned, who is like a princess. And she's in hiding, not really sure why. She's in awful clothes. Everyone comments on the clothes. She's wearing Crocs. I don't know, did her mum take her clothes away? Like, is she in hand-me-downs? Like, the top is awful, but it feels very much like something Stella would have worn last season. And she's wearing this weird dark trench coat over sweatpants and Crocs. I don't understand. Like, I get that it's just clothes. I understand that. I don't want to be that person that's doing, oh, the best wardrobes of season 2. But for the character Stella is, who is incredibly interested in always looking her best, like, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying anything bad about that. It's fine to care about what you look like you want to present yourself a certain way, you do that. But for her to go from someone incredibly conscious of her appearance to someone who dresses like that, and you don't really address why, like, oh, my mother took all my clothes, this is the stuff from the lost box, oh, my mother took all my clothes, this is all I could get from like Goodwill. Like, you explain it. You can do it with a line of dialogue, and I don't recall that anyone addresses it at all. It's very strange. So we're now introduced to, I believe it's Sam, who is Musa's boyfriend and Tara's brother. And I mean, yeah, he's angry. He's angry at the changes, and don't you worry, they don't do anything interesting with it, my dear. Like, that expectation, I need you to drop it right down. This is not that kind of show. You're thinking like, oh, it's like, oh, do we kill him off in the early part of season 2 and like motivate everyone? Because what would that do for Tara? Like, that's her brother. What would it do for Musa? That's her boyfriend. She could be in his head, as he dies. No, none of that. And we go to Aisha, who is, I think she's pretty awesome. I really like Aisha. She's great. She had nothing to do in season 1, and she's given a relatively interesting romantic subplot with a character called Gray. That's really interesting right up until the end. Like, the ending spoils it. Like, that whole last couple of episodes really spoils it, but the build up is pretty solid. Like, the twist, like, if you've seen it, you know what the twist is ultimately, that he is going to betray them all. He's one of the bad guys, and when you look at it with with your brain on, you can see it coming a mile off. Like, Aisha, oh, the cautious one who has a romantic interest for the first time, and it's her first kiss, and of course he's going to betray her. Like, this is YA. Like, of course it's happening. But when I watch this stuff, guys, I have my brain off. Like, it is off so tight. Like, it's not even on a little. So for me, I was like, oh my god, like, it floored me. I did not see it coming because brain was off, as is the best with these things. but the ending spoils it. We now come to the fighter people. So they're not fairies. They're basically fighters who train to protect the fairies. I mean, why do you need to do that? Like Bloom could set the whole building on fire. Why does she need you and your sword to protect her? I don't understand. It's again, it's very similar to Vampire Academy, where you have the people with the actual superpowers being protected by normal people. And there's never a moment of introspection of, well, why aren't they using their powers? You know, like later on we see them defending themselves, and they can be very good at it. They can use these like objects to help them channel their powers. Like it's very effective. It's very, very effective. So I'm not quite sure why they need people in like body armor protecting them. Again, that could be very interesting. I know Vampire Academy does stuff with that concept of, you know, why aren't we fighting? But we don't get that here. It's Fate the Winx Saga. So we have Sky trying to impress his dad, trying to earn his respect, and his dad, who is not great. Like Sky he's very young. There's a limited range there. I'm sure he'll get better. Like he's a young guy, but his range is not very vast for what we see in this show anyway, which is, I mean, he doesn't have good dialogue, and his subplots are probably some of the worst. The way they're handled is some of the worst. So you know, he does what he can with it. And unfortunately, the guy who plays the dad is, you know, like father like son. He's not got a great range either. So what should probably be scenes of these two, you know, emotionally reserved characters trying to open up to each other, or in the father's case, trying very hard not to open up to each other, that, you know, with better dialogue and maybe better acting would be quite moving. And, you know, you could do some commentary on toxic masculinity of, you know, trying to, you know, tough it through and not talk about your emotions and stuff. You could do something with that. But we don't get that. We don't get that at all. And we have a bit of Terra being Terra. We love Terra. Bloom and Sky having a little make out. And then we have, I'm not going to name her the best character because she's not the best character, but she is up there. And that's Beatrix, who is an electricity fairy. And she's very snarky. She's very got the snappy dialogue. And she's fantastic. She's very, very, very charismatic, very, I don't know, just has her own personality. Like she's kind of a dick. Like she's happy to upset people. She's happy to say stuff that, you know, I'm trying to think if she lies. I mean, she does when she has to, but she will be very honest with people, brutally honest with people. Just, you know, this is what's happened, you know. And I like that about her. I like that she doesn't muck about. Like so many of these characters just dither about each other, not being honest and not telling each other, even their closest friends and family, what's going on. And then so to have someone coming in and just going, no, this is what's going on. Like it's a breath of fresh air. It really is in this show. So we have them plotting to try and get Silver, get him out of jail. They're going to transfer him. And we have a scene of Sky talking with his dad. And it's just not great. It's not great. You have Beatrix literally out of focus in the back, stealing my attention because she's watching these two just like, oh my God, I'm so much more interesting than both of you put together. And this is one of the things that frustrates me. So Beatrix was basically raised by Sky's dad. She was raised by him. She sees him as a father. And Sky and her could have had such an interesting dynamic because effectively they have the same dad, you know, and you could do so much with it. You could have Beatrix maybe being a bit insecure about her relationship with the dad because, you know, she's not actually his daughter, and you could see maybe a more vulnerable side to her. You know, with Sky, you could have him that maybe he feels like he's competing with Beatrix and he's jealous of her because she has a relationship that, you know, since she was a child with his father that he doesn't have, and they do nothing with it. They have no scenes together with each together until, spoiler alert, after the dad is killed, and they don't do anything with it. And I find it bizarre. Like these are effectively almost adoptive siblings that have known each other. And she has known the whole time that Sky's dad is like, and she didn't tell him, and there's no hints, and like they don't have a conversation about it. He doesn't talk to her about it. What was your childhood like? What was your birthday? What was a birthday with him like? What did you do? What did you do in the evening? Did he just train you to fight? Did you watch cartoons? Like, there's no conversation where he tries to get to know his father through her, and it's just such a waste of this really unusual dynamic that you could have had, and it's just not used. And I find that bizarre. I just find it such a missed opportunity. I really, really do. So yeah, coming back to the plot. So we have the silver is going to be transferred, and as usual, I would call them the Scooby-Doo group, Scooby-Doos, but they're not worthy of that in both the terms of Buffy and Scooby-Doo, like, because their plans they're just bad. They're just awful. They come up with a really bad plan. It never works, and yet it succeeds. Oh, is that kind of like Scooby-Doo? I don't want to shade Scooby-Doo because I think it's amazing, but that is kind of like Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo's still better. Like, watch Scooby-Doo, don't watch this. Or maybe watch this. I don't know. This is a way to not do it. Which is a shame, writing wise anyway. I think the acting is on the most part fine, with a few exceptions, but yeah, it like the story structure and the way episodes and dialogue is laid out is just it's just poor. It's very poor. So we have our main characters have come up with a plan that hinges on Stella making them invisible. They're in their car and they're going to go rescue Silver and get him out of jail. And Stella last minute is called to the headmistress's office, and she's meant to have not been using her powers. I wish that had been explicitly shown. But maybe Dowling giving her a detention or a punishment or something, because we're going straight from you're not supposed to use this kind of invisibility magic to I'm going to put this massive rock on your back that's literally embedded into your shoulder so you can't do it. Like, that's from 0 to 60. That is very 0 to 60. So now Stella can't use her powers, and it's completely incapacitated her. We go to the gang, and they're waiting, like, Stella's not here, what do we do? And they just make a plan up. They flame out the bridge, because it's not like they have a famous fire fairy there. It's not like they take out the engine using some of the water fairy fuses something in there, and then the plant fairy uses stuff to get the keys. Like, it would be very easy to trace this back to who was involved. Or you could just be like, well, who would want to rescue Silver? Maybe it's all of Sky's friend. We have a Bubble taking the keys to Silver so he can get his handcuffs off. Did Riven just notice? I think Riven just noticed. I never noticed that before. Riven saw that and let it slide. He didn't say anything. That's interesting. And then they have this crashed vehicle and they just improvise it on the spot. Like, I'm going to ignite it. The water fairy. I mean, she's a water fairy, not a liquid fairy. How is she getting fuel out of the car? She just got fuel pumping out of the car. She is a water fairy. How much water is in petrol or diesel? I don't think there is any. So how is she's a water fairy, not a liquids fairy? I mean, why would I expect consistent world building? Like, come on now, don't do that. So we now have actually this is quite well shot. We have a chase through the woods. Silver's got away. We've got magic arrows, which I don't think we've seen before. He's got being flung about, and he's got 2 arrows in him, and he goes under the water, and it's all pretty well shot. Like that, I'll grant them that. There's some really hinky shots in this show, but this is not it. We have him underwater, and we have our second interesting use of powers. Bearing in mind, we are like, where are we? Like 30 minutes into our first episode of season 2, and we have 2 interesting uses of powers. So we have a Bubble. Come on, Bubble. Where are you at, Bubble? He's choking underwater. He's gasping. Can you gasp without air? You gurgle water, but can you gasp? Sorry, the subtitle said gasp when he's underwater. Can you actually gasp if there's no air around you? I don't know. So anyway, so Aisha has a bubble of air that she's taking down to help him breathe. That's a creative use. The CGI is pretty solid. That's interesting. That's good. I like that. That's well done, show. Well done, show. So yeah, then they get Silver out of the water, and he says, "You need to take me to this place." And they go to this kind of comic book shop with this really quirky guy, and isn't he quirky? And he's giving me Moriarty from Sherlock energy. It's very that. It feels like kind of someone said, what do you want me to do for this performance? And they just went, do you know Moriarty from Sherlock? And they were like, oh yeah, no, I know him. Like, just do that. Just that. Oh, it should have been a giveaway for his character direction, which I didn't see this coming. Like, I should have, Ebert's economy of characters. It kind of, there was no one else it could be who would be the leader of this season's bad guys, which is the Blood Witches. But it's him. It's spoiler alert. We're doing a breakdown, guys. Come on. It's Winx. Like, I think if you knew the entirety of the plot, it still doesn't make sense. Like, I've watched each season twice, and I genuinely had completely forgotten what the burned ones were. Like, I just had forgotten, and they are like 8-foot magic creatures that like murder people left, right, and center in season 1, and I forgot they existed. So there you are. So we have various conversations that don't. There's a lot of repeats. Like, we have Skye getting angry with Dane, and actually lashing back, which I'm not quite sure why. I get Skye's angry. Like, I feel like there's a better way of showing it. Like, Dane's dad not Dane. Skye's dad just watches him. Not even with approval. Like, did he want his dad's approval? Like, what was that? You just beat up Dane, who's your best, your best friend. Or Riven. Is Riven your best friend? That's a depressing thought. He's the one who said that awful thing. The clip from earlier. That's your best friend, Riven's boyfriend, who's in a throuple with Beatrix. But just like why do that? And again, we start to have the real recycled conversation. So we have another conversation between the girls again, and they're all kind of like, where were you, Stella? And I don't think she tells them. Does she tell them? Oh, she just says, I'm fine. She doesn't open up to them. That I buy. Like, Stella is not very good at opening up to people. She's not very good at admitting she needs help. No, that's in character. I mean, her outfits are not. That's a massive breach of character, but that's fine. And we have Musa's kind of botched subplot beginning, where Sam, her boyfriend, and Tara's brother, is very angry, and she's taking his anger from him, which I don't think she had that ability in season 1. Like, there's a lot of abilities that have been gained with no clear explanation, no training. So Musa can now influence other people's emotions, kind of a bit like Jasper in Twilight. I know, an original. Who would have thought? Who'd have thunk it? And now Terra can control rocks. We have our throuple having fun together. Good for them. Glad they're happy. Hope it lasts. It does not. And we have another repetitive conversation between Rosalind and Bloom, exactly the same as before. Like, you were really important. You're the reason I'm standing here. Like, you need to do your best. And her being like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. And are we on the right side? Oh no. It's just the same. It really does feel the same again and again and again without much progress. And the Crocs. Oh God, they're back. The Crocs are back. I'm haunted by these Crocs. I really am. Oh God, they've got stripes. Oh God. Oh, Beatrix has just disintegrated them. Bless you. I knew. Maybe you are my favourite character now because you freed me from the Crocs. I don't know. I do really like Aisha. We'll have to see by the end of the season. I like the kind of Mean Girls frenemy relationship they have between Stella and Beatrix. Like, I feel like that would happen in real life. Like, they are, in their different ways, the Mean Girls. So yeah, they probably would form an alliance. They would probably be able to talk to each other in a way they couldn't talk to the other characters. Like, I like their dynamic. It's kind of botched at the end, as a lot of things are. And we have our book ending. So the Mind Fairy from earlier on appears, collapses to the floor. He's covered in blood. He looks like he's been through some stuff. And we see Rosalind in the basement with one of the magic worms, and a load of people fitting and strapped to beds. And it's unfortunately completely consistent with the character we've got at the moment, which is that she's evil, and she's evil. And did I mention that she's evil? And we end there on a bit of a cliffhanger with that episode. So going back over it, it's this is a pretty average episode. It's not the best, it's not the worst. There are some interesting uses of the powers. It's a shame we don't get more. The character interactions are incredibly repetitive, even in wildly different situations. Wildly repetitive, and don't progress anything. They just sort of create this cycle of almost like time wasting. Like, okay, so we can spend 5 minutes of every episode having a conversation between Bloom and Rosalind. We can do that every single episode, and sometimes we'll do 10 minutes and sometimes we'll do 15. It's the same, and they come up with a dumb plan and it doesn't work out, but yet they still succeed, and it's just rinse and repeat. And we start to get some of the main plots kicking off. So Aisha's potential love interest in Grey, which is interesting, as I said, until the end. You have Bloom and Sky being unfortunately quite a bland couple. They try to give them like fun banter, but it's just there doesn't seem to be much chemistry. I don't know whose door to lay that at, because he, as I said earlier, he's got quite limited range. We have Stella's abilities being taken away because she's just so powerful. Like, being able to turn anything and anyone invisible is just too powerful. And I don't like when characters just get depowered so that the plot can happen. I find that really lazy. I would much prefer if like people planned things out in advance and knew, okay, well, let's give her that she can kind of camouflage people, but it's not perfect, and then just to work towards it. But that would require planning, which we're not. That's not what we're here for, is it? It's not a show of planning. We've got Musa starting to kind of use her abilities without getting people's consent, and it kind of do something with that, but not a lot. So there's a lot of potential. There's so much potential here, which is what I find so frustrating. And then to have this like, they make all this fake drama, like they make all this stupid fake drama, like later on when Beatrix, Dane and Riven all break up, there's all this fake drama, and you have it right there. You have Beatrix and you have Sky, and that is a juicy situation. That is something where you don't need to even put that much effort in, just the characters they are. It's a subplot. That is a subplot that you could take over, I mean, half a season, maybe a whole season, depending on how you handle it. And it just, for it to not be used at all is wild. It's absolutely wild to me, how the story in this is structured. So yeah, we have done our deep dive into episode 1, very average episode. I don't really feel like, I feel like I'm going to come up with a new ranking system, because if at its best, at its very best, the best moments of this show just about hit a 2 out of 5, it's not really fair to rank it compared to other series. Like, because if you compare it to other shows that have like amazing writing, great acting, bigger budgets, it's just not fair. Like, it's not Game of Thrones budget. It's just not, it's not fair at all for that comparison. So I think I'm gonna have to come up with a new scale. What could we scale? I'll have to come up with a scale. This is just average. This is just some cool ideas, not very well executed, one or two interesting characters, the rest just kind of blur. It's just blur. And I just, for me, the thing I can't get my out of my head is the story structure. Like I've had TV shows that have been relatively well plotted and the characters are just kind of boring, and it's just in the background. You just watch it in the background, like whatever, whilst you're doing other stuff. But there's something about the plotting of this show that feels so deliberate, and I don't know why. Like, I just want to understand why. Why would you structure it that way? Why would you handle it that way? I want to understand, and I can't, because there probably isn't a reason, necessarily a deep reason why. But we will come to that at another time, I guess. So thank you very much for listening.